China is an economic powerhouse. They are really going at it right now with the rest of the world. But many people see them as a developing nation and that they really don't have the strength yet to overcome their adversaries. However, I'm going to suggest to you today that China already has its grip tight around the neck of the US. Another Obama bow flap. You could see here that he is bowing down yet again, and this time to the Chinese leader. And this, of course, this is just symbolic, but it is really symbolic of something greater. Let's look at that right now. China's treasury holdings make U.S. woes its own. And if I go to the diagram right here, you're going to see that China does own such a large amount of the U.S. debt. Now, what this does is poses a problem down in the future because the U.S., as I talked about in my book, the U.S. is able to consume and consume and consume because countries like China are buying at the rate they have been. However, in recent years and many statements that certain Chinese officials have made, they want to consume less, and that will pose a problem, a huge shift in global power over the next few decades as China does a few things to change the way they've been running right now. Why does the U.S. still give China aid? According to the OECD, foreign aid to China totals $2.6 billion a year. So even though China is buying the debt of the U.S. then gives money back to China in this real circular game here. So it seems like China is the big winner here in this instance. They hold all the power, yet they're still receiving billions of dollars a year in foreign aid. These are basically bribes. Israel gets billions and billions of dollars every single year from the U.S. alone. These are gifts from one country to another, and of course the taxpayer has no say in the matter. So the U.S. giving billions, and not just the U.S., but I'm focusing on that for this video. The U.S. is giving billions a year to China, funding and fueling their communist government here. And what is that doing to the U.S.? Let's get into some more things. Red Dawn film replaces Chinese villains with North Koreans, and they were saying that it was going to alienate this lucrative market in China. So they had to change the script entirely in the remake of this film for the Chinese market. And of course, that's just one thing. But let's take a look at this. Chinese viewers, Hollywood hurdle. If I go into what they're talking about, films critical of China can face difficulty not only with regulators, that's the point I wanted to highlight, but also with audiences wary of betraying them in a negative light. Now, if you look at this article, you scroll down, there are so many instances where movies have been critical of China, or in some ways they've changed the movies, just like this Red Dawn movie, where it was looked at negatively on China, and they had to change that. This is actually really censorship in many ways. China having that grip on the U.S., particularly on Hollywood, which is essentially where most people are getting their information from because they're so focused on the wrong things. So they look for the mainstream media and they look into the movies and they think they're learning. However, it's so controlled, and you can see that right here, where China actually has a grip. Despite the fact that they seem like they're an adversary against the U.S., they are receiving billions of dollars from the U.S., and they are receiving here basically their orders. And what about this? I've covered it before, but Chinese to spend billions of dollars on American real estate. China is investing huge into the real estate market in the U.S., buying up pieces of land, buying up all kinds of things that they can, real assets. So in many ways, the U.S. is actually submitting to China, and I believe that they may have gone too far at this point because all of the Chinese products are flowing into the U.S. The U.S. is giving billions of dollars, sending it that way. All of the manufacturing jobs have been shipped off to countries like China in hopes that China continues to do business with the U.S. If they decide, and I'm not suggesting that they will, especially right right now. But if they decide somewhere in the near future or even in the distant future to stop this game that they're playing right now, it is going to mean the instant and eventual collapse of the US dollar, the US economy, and forevermore, or at least into that far-seeing future, the U.S. will never be the same. That is the danger that I'm bringing to you today. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not suggesting that this is going to necessarily happen, but we can already see the steps being put into place, how this plan is being put together on so many levels, and look how it's being funded and look how it's being pushed. You have NAFTA and GATT pushing the jobs overseas into countries like China. You have the Chinese being exploited, like with the Foxconn factory, and you have basically the US or Canada, wherever you live, actually taking advice from China and almost under their command in many ways. It is quite sad, and this is not the way it should go. We need to reverse this, and we need to really speak up against it and do what you can. You need to stop buying the goods from China and definitely do what you can in your own country to really support it and try to go against the way that it's going with this whole offshoring of the jobs. We need to support our economies locally. This is the Money GPS Insiders, where you can get information that I cannot get into on the Money GPS YouTube channel, and also an extension of what I've done in my book. And you can do so by getting to themoneygps.com, scroll down to the bottom, fill in your email address, and you will get occasional emails from me. And it's exclusive content and deep analysis, and I hope you join the others on there.